So, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mark Townsend, and I'm a group program manager with our commerce and hosting team. And with me is Ori Grishoni with our commerce and hosting team. So I'm the GPM, and Ori's our dev manager. So what we're going to talk to you about today, actually before I get started, did everyone get their complimentary Siberian spa treatment this morning? I know I got mine. It was awesome. So they're giving comps for that, by the way, if you go ask them about it. So as far as our agenda, what we're going to talk about, we're going to tell you what we're building, who we're building it for, who our customers are, why we picked e-commerce to focus on, then how we're going to build this, which will give you a little sneak peek of our current work. So we'll cover a demo of our current site. We'll show you some designer and developer experiences. And we'll do some architecture drill down, say when we hope to have this available, and we'll have a call to action and Q&A at the end. So what are we building? We're really focused on building primarily a foundation for creating hosting-friendly applications. This really covers a pretty wide swath of different technologies and different things we need to put in. So this is going to be a combination of products, guidance, community sites. A lot has yet to be announced, so please stay tuned for more information on that. But we really want to focus on building a rich, extensible, also reference applications for this platform. We're going to provide deployment scripts, tools, again, detailed guidance for Windows hosters. And primarily, and this is the thing I'm specifically passionate about, is we really wanted to build and develop a really rich application community that consists of all the right people. There's developers, designers, hosters, end customers, resellers, VARs, and enthusiasts, perhaps as yourself. So how we're doing this, we're going to focus on e-commerce first. So before we get too far into this, I'm going to give you a quick demo of our current work. So what we have here is typical e-commerce site. Let me go full screen on this so you can get the full experience. What we've done is we've taken you probably remember, if you've been looking at Microsoft products for some time, you're probably very familiar with the AdventureWorks catalog. If you've used our Commerce Server product in the past, you've probably seen some AdventureWorks products, and we use that as our catalog example. So we looked at lots of different ideas of what we could use for a new sample site, and so we just came back to AdventureWorks. It seemed to work really well, but we really felt like with all the new tools that are available to us, we could do a much better job of that. So let me give you a little sneak peek of what we have. Standard homepage, splash screen. We've got category pages. And I'll come back to this control here in just a minute, but let's look at something such as like backpacks. Very standard e-commerce experience. We've got a thumbnail view or our category landing page. And you see what we're using here are some Silverlight controls that has some mouse over events to show add to cart. So we could pick, say, one of these, add it to the cart, and you'll see the cart animation run. We'll pick this lightweight backpack. We're also doing some different things with Silverlight in that we could do, multiple views. You'll see expanded views. There's a zoom control, so you can zoom in on a piece of this. You want to look at the non-existent logo, and so on. You also see some related items. So we're building some deeper relationships into our catalog system. Again, we'll cover that more in a little while. But we had some very key learnings out of our previous experience with e-commerce, and there's a couple of really, really important things that we wanted to put into this product, which was really deep relationship support. That what our customers and you all have told us loud and clear is product relationships are everything. It's how merchandisers really think. So we're building that in. So, as I promised, I'm going to come back to this one control. And we took a couple of concepts, again, based on our experience of, what sort of new things can we do with the technology set that we have that really fit with what retailers have told us and other businesses have told us they want to see in the past. So it really came around the concept of how can you take an activity and associate a set of products to an activity. So here we've got backpacks, and if you see, here's quite a few different items you'll see associated with backpacks that aren't necessarily backpacks. For example, you'll see here's a lantern, and you'll get a thumbnail view of this thing. You can add to cart from here. You could also you can click on this. You'll still go to the detail page, and so on. But it's still a little boring. We looked at, I mean, this is kind of cool. It's not many people doing this sort of thing, but it's still a little boring. So what could we do to take this to the next level? And so we thought, well, how about full motion video? Why not take the same concept, same control that has both, that takes either full motion video or static content and have the same experience? Actually, can we get the sound? So as you'll see, we've got a full motion video running in the background. Same concept, same add to cart experience, same view cart. And you could also imagine, these are typically ads. You could have these as category landing pages, featured items, and so on. But it really gives you an idea of what's possible with the tool set. So we've also got multiple videos for different categories. Do we get the sound? Well, there is sound here.
Do you need to turn me down? This?
See if I can get this working. We'll work on that here in a minute.
I'll get another audio patch, right?
Okay. So as you can see, that there's some pretty interesting possibilities of what you can do with this technology set. And we've tried lots of different combinations, and we really landed on just this one. And what we'd like to do is just get some feedback from the community in general on, you tell us what's working, what's not working. What can we do to improve these things? I really want to get this working here. Just a minute. I'll probably do it. Okay. These are here. Cool. Okay. See if we get this back. Got signal back up here. Hey! All right. Okay, so we've actually got 3 different videos, but you can imagine you can change this around to be whatever you want it to be. So we've got different activities here. We've also got a climbing activity. Same sort of concept here that we've got an association set up with carabiners. And again, you can go pick one of these, add it to your cart, and so on. So, and the most important, mute feature. So, I mean, this is interesting, but not everyone wants the same look and feel. So, one of the other things that we want to make sure that we were able to do is provide a framework that's easily skinnable and themable. So, let me jump out here, and let me run something. Of course, yes, I want to continue. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just edit our web config file. What we've done, we've also have another theme set up. So we're going to show you how easy it is to retheme a site. What our themes really consist of are a combination of XAML files, style sheets, CSS files, and just images themselves. So if we go down here to our theme, it's like Corey likes to tell me, real developers don't use scroll. There we go. We're just going to change this to a different name. We just picked up an alternate. So to save that, let's go back to our site. I'm just going to press F5. And so what you'll see is same content, same everything, we've just applied a new theme to it. So. Okay, and mute. Oh. So let's get back to our... There we go. So, go back one here. That was our demo. And so, who are customers behind all this, and who are we building this foundation for? So, it's a combination of all of these things. And as we got into it, we realized how hard this really is. But we're completely focused on we're calling it 360 or persona view of who we consider the application to be built for. So, it's developers, site designers, solution resellers, as we're understanding more about this market, hosters specifically, small to medium-sized businesses who would want to run their stores off of something like this. You, in the audience, we're building this exactly for you. And again, at the end, we'll have more of a call to action, and we'd really like to get your feedback and tell us what we need to do better. In short, what we're really focusing on is a complete community ecosystem of all the above.
Actually, before the next slide, there are a few empty seats in the front, like 5th and 6th row over here. So people in the back, feel free to come forward if you want to sit down.
I heard the standing's really good, too. So I guess one question is, why e-commerce? Of all the hosted applications in the market, why e-commerce? Well, according to our research, hosted commerce is probably one of the top internet scenarios. Extremely important, drives a lot of business for the economy, and it's a really hard thing to get right. That what we've seen is a lot of roll your own type applications that could really benefit from a common foundation support. And so we felt like we're probably in the best position to provide a really rich, secure, and a robust foundation for building these types of applications. We've also have a lot of direct customer feedback. We've got many, many years of sometimes very harsh customer feedback on what we've done right and not done so well in the past. So these are the types of things we're building into the system. An example being these related items, bundled products in the catalog system, so on. And some things that we're finding out is that the hosted space is really very different than the enterprise space. So we have an enterprise product with Commerce Server 2007 that's focused at a very different problem domain. This thing that we're building is focused on something totally different. And again, we have a really rich ecosystem that hopefully you'll be very involved with. So some of the features. We're focused on a fully extensible UI layer, and that includes not only the store site that you saw a little preview of a little while ago, but also a complete store admin site behind the scenes, so really two complete applications. All of this will sit on top of this core foundation I keep talking about that contains a rich object model, and then as well as a facade layer that fits over the top of the object model to allow certain types of developers. There's developers come in lots of different skill sets. Some people just want to get in, code something really quick, and just get it out really quickly. We'll have a facade layer for that. For people who need more control, more fine-grained control, we'll have a very rich object model underneath to support that as well. A supporting database schema with data access code that fits on top of that. And we'll be providing through the object model some very rich abstractions for the common things like catalog and orders. So I'm going to hand this over to the technical side to our dev team, which is Ori.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mark. So Mark talked about what we built, what the site looks like, and I'm going to go into how it works in a little bit more detail. So this is the high-level architectural diagram. As you can see, it's a classical three-tier architecture. Client UI, which is the yellow and red boxes. Web UI, client tier, web tier, which are the green and orange boxes, and then database tier, which is the blue box. The client tier is the shopper UI, which is the storefront. It's the site that Mark showed you in the demo. The business UI, which is the business management website, the site that you go to administer orders, to manage the catalog, etc. And both of these sites are built on top of Silverlight. They're going to ship on top of Silverlight 1.1, so both are going to take full advantage of the managed programming model. The green box, the Commerce Foundation, is the object model, the API that provides all the capabilities of our e-commerce system. One of the fundamental decisions that we made is to build the foundation on top of the ADO.NET Entity Framework, which means that all of our objects are ADO.NET entities exposed directly to the user. And that gives us a lot of flexibility and extensibility. And we have some slides to show you exactly what that means. And the blue box is the database. So right now we use SQL Server, but we can use many other types of databases that are supported by the ADO.NET framework. So before we go into the boxes, I'll talk a little bit about the architectural tenets that really drove the design of all the boxes of the entire system. So the first two are about consistency. Consistency across functional areas. What that means that once you learn to use one functional area, such as catalog, if you want to use others, then the APIs really look pretty much the same, that the learning curve is really low. Consistency across client and server, that's something that's really possible thanks to Silverlight, because you write code on the client using Silverlight and on the server using ASP.NET. You can use C# in both places. And so the API that we give to the user is essentially the same, so you don't need to learn it twice. Shared hosting friendly. So a big part of our goal is for hosters to be able to use this. So of course we need to be able to run in partial trust, and almost all our features, if not all of them, are going to run successfully in partial trust. Also, we're going to reduce working set as much as we can, which means that you'll be able to achieve a very high site density, which is going to reduce the cost for the hosters. And one other thing that we're going to do within Microsoft is really push on all the dependent technologies that we're using to reduce their working set, so that the entire ecosystem is going to be better for hosting. And last but certainly not least is extensibility. We can't possibly predict all the different things that people are going to want to do with the system. Especially with e-commerce, there's lots of different types of sites, and we're just building the foundation for other people to build on top of. So extensibility roughly breaks down into business UI and the business and developer extensibility. Business extensibility means that someone who's not a developer, not a designer, can go to the business UI and add new types of products, add new properties, and everything gets reflected in the UI. You don't need to write any code. Developer extensibility means that for a developer, you can create strongly typed classes corresponding to new products. You can create new entities that we never even thought of, and you can create relationships between those entities and our core entities. And I have some slides that show you exactly how to do that. And it also means that for ISVs, you'll be able to create packages that you can give to users for particular type of businesses that might even include some UI elements. This will be add-ons that hopefully will create an ecosystem where people contribute for pay or for free these kinds of add-ons to build new types of sites on. So UI technologies. So this is a place where we have a little bit for everyone. So business decision maker. And the big thing there is that we have turnkey applications. So if you don't want to spend any money on developers or on UI designers, you basically take our app, you put it on a web server, you let it go, and your site is up and running. You can go to the catalog and add product. You can manage your orders. You're basically good to go. Data-driven UI means that you can add new properties from the business UI, and that gets reflected. Directly in the shopper UI. Developer. So developers are going to love this Silverlight managed programming model. You get to write your code in C#. It's going to run 300 to 1,000 times faster than JavaScript. You get to debug using Visual Studio. Basically everything the developers have been asking for. And for VARs and ISVs, you have extensibility and reuse. So you can build components to be used by others. And designers is probably the most exciting part of this. You can use the expression suite to really customize the look and feel of the UI. One of the big things that we did is we used templated controls. So you can take a control, and each control has a template associated with it. You can modify the template, and then the look and feel of the control is going to change. So let me show you what it looks like. It's a segue into our next demo. So let's go back to the theme that we had before.
You change the theme?
Where's the theme? Okay, so let's go back to the AdventureWorks theme. Excellent. Okay, and let's try to change a few things about this page. So the thing we're going to start with is just this control up here. It doesn't really do a whole lot. It has a picture, gear, and then the next button. Let's see how we can make that look a little bit different. So the first thing that you do is you start up Expression Blend. Okay, and then I've already created a project file that contains all the templates that we can modify. So on the right-hand side in a minute, you're going to see a collection of templates that you can modify to change the look and feel of the site. So let's start with the category index page. Let's make it so it looks a little bit better. So here's the image. Let's just do really simple changes. Move the image over here. Let's move category next to it. Not very fond of that yellow, so let's create a gradient brush. Start it with yellow. And then go to, on this side, let's go to red. And as you can see, it's yellow to red. One of the other interesting things is that this is a data-bound control. So you can see that the word category, in practice, gets bound to the actual name of the category, in this case, gear. Okay, and let's just move the next and previous buttons a little bit. Let's save that. Press F5. And as you can see, it looks a little bit different. Okay, so let's try to do something a little bit more interesting. So let's buy a few products, add them to the cart. And as you can see in the cart, when you hover over one of those products, you can see that the alpha factor is a little bit higher. You can see a little bit darker on the product. So let's do something more interesting. Let's try to expand it so it's more obvious to you what the mouse is hovering over. So the way you do that, let's go back to Expression Blend. We need to load another template, which is mini cart product. And this is the image. So now what we're going to do is modify the animation. So we go to image mouse over. And we go to timeline 0.3 seconds. I'll make sure this fits on the screen. And we want to make the image just a tad bit bigger. And we want to make the product info a little bit smaller. Okay, and let's undo that. So image mouse out. We go to 0.3. Click on image. And do that. And then product info, just perturb it a little bit so it'll create a frame. So save that. And let's see what that looks like. So you can see when you hover it, it gets bigger. And also look at the text right next to it. The text squishes a little bit to the side. And one of the things that's really nice about this is that you've just modified the template for control. So everywhere we use this control on the page, you're going to get this new behavior. And as Mark showed you, each particular theme can have different XAML files associated with it. So some themes can have this kind of animation, some can have rotations or blending or anything else that your designer would want to try and do. So let's try and do something even prettier than that. So let's try to do it so that we hover over this product rather than showing the add to cart in the bottom. It shows up on the top and the product slides down. So again, we go to expression blend. And we look. Oh. There we go. So we go to product thumbnail. So this is the product thumbnail. So what we're looking at is the animation for enter summary mode. So what we want to do is a timeline 0.3. We want, let's see, add to cart button. We want to move it all the way to the top. So right now I'm moving it with the cursor keys to get better precision. I can do that with the mouse too if I want. And let's move the border a little bit down. Let's move the canvas a little bit down. And let's go to 0.1. And I'll move add to cart button to the top too so that you don't see it moving from the bottom to the top. We really want it to appear at the top to start with. And exit summary mode. We want things to be restored after we're done. So let's just perturb the border a little bit. Oops, I'm sorry. I forgot to do it at timeline 0.3. Add to cart button, we want to keep at the top. And then canvas, we just want to perturb it a little bit so that it goes back to place. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm reloading the page. And you can see the animation where it's sliding down. So let's make it look even a little bit prettier than this. And one other small thing that we can do is on enter summary mode, with the add to cart button, we can start by making it really small so you can see it expand. So we just make it really small to start with. Save. Oops. Go back to the browser, hit F5. And now look at the add to cart button as it materializes on top. So you can see that once the developer creates a site, or once we create the site, anyone can come to, and with expression blend in just a few minutes, completely change the way the site looks, which is, it's very compelling. It really can save you a lot of money. You don't have to hire developers to have a very unique themed site for your product. Okay, so let's talk about the foundation now that we're done talking about UI. So the foundation is really the base. It's the set of APIs that the whole system rests on. And the big decision that we made is to build it on top of the ADO.NET Entity Framework. So what that means is that ADO.NET really maintains the database and creates an abstraction on top of it that we use as our APIs, as our object model. So that buys us a few things. The first thing is consistency across all our functional areas. Because all our objects are ADO.NET entities, once you learn to use one of them, you basically know how to use all of them. It means that we get object identity. If two different API calls are supposed to return the same row in the database table, it's actually going to be the same .NET object that comes back. So you don't have cases where you made two calls, you modified one of the objects, and then you have inconsistencies, and it's really confusing to know what to do. It means that you get change tracking. If you make changes to one of your objects, you don't need to several of your objects, you don't need to save them one at a time. Saving them one at a time is a lot of work, and it can also be pretty difficult to find exactly the right order. If you save them in the wrong order, then the database is not going to like it, because maybe you're saving the relationship to something that hasn't been saved yet. With our model, with ADO.NET Entity Framework, you just call save changes once, and it figures out the order in which you do your changes. And of course, you get link support, so very easy way to make queries. And on top of that, you also get extensibility, so you can add new types of entities that are really no different than the entities that we support. So let's look at a few examples. So first one is product with localized properties. So a developer, if you look at these boxes, you have object model, which is what the developer sees, and then database, which is the tables representing that concept inside the database. So what the developer wants is to have a class called product, and then a bunch of properties on it. And depending on where the HTTP request is coming from, you want to get the properties, such as display name, corresponding to that locale. The developer doesn't want to have a bunch of really complicated logic to figure out exactly which language it is and which property to get. You basically want to say product.properties and get the right thing. The way this is represented in the database is that you have a table for product, and then you have a table for each language, such as English or French, etc. You can have as many as you want. And the developer really has exactly what he or she wants. He has one class. And the way we do this abstraction is that there's a mapping file that shows how the object model maps to the database. And we have n mapping files, one for each language. And when we see which URL where the request is coming from, which locale, we select that particular mapping file, and we create a mapping that gives you the product that you want with the right set of localized properties. So relationships. So before I talk about this, let me talk about the concept of tags. So tags is something that you use to very easily create a navigation hierarchy in your e-commerce site. So suppose that you have a product like a men's shoes, a shoe for men. Then the way to navigate to it could be under shoes, in which you find men or women, or maybe you find men products, and then you have shoes and other types of accessories. And the way you represent that in the database is you just add a tag to the product, one tag for men and one tag for shoes. The way the programmer wants to see this is that he has one .NET object for product, which is the blue box, one .NET object for tag, which is the green box, and then form a many-to-many relationship between them. So in code, it's going to look like product.tags, which is going to give you the collection of all the tags for that product, and then tag.products that give you all the products that use that particular tag. Databases don't know about this. The way databases represent this is through join tables. So you have a third table, which is this red box, which is the product-to-tag join table, where you have a row for each type of relationship. So for example, that particular shoe would have a relationship with men, and it would also have a relationship with shoe. The programmer doesn't want to know about this, so the programmer is able to maintain this really nice programming interface despite the fact that the database story is a little bit more complicated. And then finally, this is an example of how to do developer extensibility. So suppose that you're building an e-commerce site for a music store. So the most common product that you're going to sell is going to be a CD. So the developer is going to want a strongly typed object corresponding to CD that has various properties like music tracks. The developer might also want to have something like an artist, which is a .NET object corresponding to music artist. And then you have many-to-many relationship between artist and product, between artist and CD. An artist can record multiple CDs. A CD can contain songs from multiple artists. In the database, you just have one table for product. You add a new table for artist, and then you add this join table that map product to artist, and we just produce the mapping to give you exactly the object model that you want. All the boxes in red in this diagram are things that the developer is able to add. We just provide what's in blue and in yellow. So let's see what the API looks like a little bit. So I have a very, very early prototype of our API running under this VM. Actually, I think what I need to do is... Okay. Okay, so let's see. So what I'm going to do to start with is just create a few grid view controls that we can start to bind to data. So I'll create 4 of them. Let's choose themes to make them look a little bit prettier. So that's going to be the first one. Second one. The third one. And I'll choose one more. Okay, so basically we have 4 grid view controls that are not bound to anything. And let's start to write a little bit of code against them. So over here it's an app. It doesn't really do a whole lot so far. It basically calls this function bind data that creates a catalog for us and then calls this empty function commerce demo. And to reduce my typing a little bit, I already bound all the controls at the data pre-render phase. So let's start with something really simple. Let's take the very first grid view control and try to bind it to all the data in the catalog, to all the products in the catalog. So grid view 1 dot data source is equal to catalog context. So catalog context is the context for the catalog. You can think of the context as something that maintains the database connection. One of the things that we simplified for developers is the creation of database connections or object contexts. You don't want the connection to be too short-lived, because if you create it every time you use it, the overhead is too high. You don't want it to be too long-lived, because it's going to accumulate state. For web apps, it turns out that the right lifetime for it is the HTTP request. So we basically maintain that for you. So if you type catalog context.current, what it gives you is the context that's valid for the current HTTP request. So commerce catalog items. So what this does is it just binds the data source of the first grid view to commerce catalog items. So let's hit F5. And my apologies that this is taking a while. This is Mark's laptop, who's a GPM in our group. And it's very, very good at running Outlook. And it's very good at running PowerPoint, but not so used to running Visual Studio.
Well, look whose code it's running, too.
So this is basically it. You have this table that shows you the shoes. So it's not really that clean. So let's clean this up a little bit more. So I'll do that by forming this into a link query. So let's say from Q in this. And what we're going to do is select a new anonymous type. Select new. So Q dot product ID and Q dot list price. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit cleaner. It's just going to show you the products that you want. What this link query does is it looks at all the items in the catalog, and then for each one, it's going to create what we call an anonymous type. It's going to create a new type in C# that just has two fields, the product ID and the list price, and it's going to bind the collection of those types into the data source controller. Each of those products has a tag associated with it. So let's see what the tags are. So I've already typed just a little bit of code to do that, which I'm going to go over here. Basically create a new array list, iterate over all the products, and then get the tags, which is going to be this link query. So for each product, look at the tags and select all the names, and then join them into a comma-separated array, and then add them to the list of this anonymous tab that contains the product ID, list price, and the tags. So this is the bind grid function. So let's use the second grid view. And let's bind it to commerce catalog items. So there should be another row here that basically shows you all the tags associated with each product. But you can do even more than that. So let's say that you want to see all the products that are shoes. So how do you do that? So let's create a new query. And another feature that I'm using here is type inferencing. So I don't want to have to specify the type of A. I just say var, and the C# compiler is going to figure out exactly which type corresponds to that. Makes your life a lot easier when you type this code. So let's start from B in catalog context .current .commerce catalog items, and then from T in B.tags. So basically, look at all the products, and for each product, look at the set of tags, and then where the name of the tag is equal to shoes. And what you select is B, which is basically the list of products. And let's bind that to the third grid, grid view 3. And we want to bind A to it. So hit F5. And what we should see is a table that shows you all the shoes, which is this table. So one last thing, let's say that we want to reduce the price of shoes by $5. So we already have this query, so we can iterate for each, let's say W in A.list price. Not quite. Thank you. Doesn't seem to like that. Oh, I'm sorry, var W in A. It didn't know that it's a variable. W.list price minus equals 5. And let's bind it to a grid again to see if we're able to make these changes. Grid view 4, and we bind A, which is basically the same sets of products. So we're trying to do a $5 discount on all the shoes. So as you can see, the shoes are discounted. But did they really get discounted in the database? So let's go to SQL Server Management Express. Connect to our database, which is the commerce database. Run a query against that. So select star from commerce catalog items. So let's go back here. So in this example, hiking boot is $55, but let's see. Hiking boot here, the price is still $60. So nothing really happened. Any ideas why it's not there? Anyone? Mark?
Because you haven't saved it.
Exactly. So all the changes that we made are basically to just .NET objects. We didn't make any changes to the actual database. So the programming model is you can make all the changes that you want. You can discard them if you want. But if you want to actually persist them, then you need to go to the context, which is catalog context.current, and then just call save changes. Let's run that. It should bring up the same web page that we saw before. But when we go to the database now, we should see that the price is $55. So that's a really, really nice programming model for the user to have. You have all these .NET objects. You make all the changes, all the relationships that you want. And when you're done with it, you just call save changes, and the system takes care of it. Okay. So let's go back to the slide deck. Okay, so very last architecture slide. This is a high-level overview of what we're building. So most of what we looked at so far are the boxes in red in the middle of it. So product catalog are the set of entities that correspond to the catalog items. We're going to have similar entities for profiles and user, baskets, and others. On top of that, in yellow and in light blue, you have link and facade and object services. So that's the API that lets the user get access to these objects to start with. Everything sits on top of the database. You can use one database or multiple databases. On the left-hand side, we have various providers for profiles and ASP.NET membership that are going to be going to the entities to get their information. And on the right is going to be a pipeline for basket and other processing. So that's going to be a set of stages that you can customize. You can plug in new phases for doing things like computing the price of a product or for doing shipping. And the pipeline is going to be using WWF, the Windows Workflow Foundation. So you'll be able to use the Visual Studio Designer and the API that you're used to for that. So with that, I'll let Mark.
All right, thanks, Rory. So one of the questions we got during the dry run was like, well, when is this going to be available and how do I get it? So first off, we're going to make these available as free downloads. We're going to target multiple pre-releases in the form of CTPs. We're not exactly sure on the exact dates yet, so we're not disclosing dates as of yet, but we want to do as many of these as possible. This is where we could really use your help. So as we release these things, please get involved, please use these, please give us feedback, and you'll get a chance to shape the product. For the RTM date, which we call internally our release to manufacturing, the date that will be done and will release to the web will be in 2008. Again, we're not exactly showing the dates. It still is software. So as far as announcements, we will have a better communication mechanism set up here very shortly. So we're still in the process of getting that set up. And just before this meeting, Ori and I went out and we cleared our blogs out. So we'll have brand new blogs. We'll be talking primarily about just this. So these are the addresses to both of our blogs, which is blogs.msdn.com, Markto, which is my mail alias, and Ori Grishoni at Microsoft. As far as forums, I apologize for the link, but if you go to forums.asp.net, it'll be in the hosting section. So there's actually, if you scroll down about the bottom third of the page, there's a hosting section, and you'll see, if you go inside hosting, then you'll see something called commerce extensions. So that's where you'll be able to, and again, there's no entries in it yet. It was just posted live yesterday. We welcome you to use that. So as far as the call to action, please get involved, everyone. We want to make this freely available. We want to get everyone's feedback. Your feedback is very, very important to us. This is a way that we determine, the things that are working well, the things that are not working so well. We only want to focus our efforts on the things that provide you the most value. So please get involved. Please give us that feedback. So download the CTPs and then use these products to go wow your customers. Whether your customers are external entities, whether you work inside a company that your customers are actually your end users, use these tools to do your jobs better. So we've left, looks like 23 minutes on the clock just for questions and answers. We're assuming that there's going to be lots, and so we want to leave as much time as possible. If you don't get a chance to ask us questions up here on stage, here's our mail addresses. Please send us mail directly. And so with that, so for the people leaving, please fill out your evaluations. So if you go to the right-hand column, it's all 10s. Please put those in.
And please go to the microphone for questions so that people that hear this recording can hear what you're asking.
Okay, so is there any questions?
Yeah, so looks like a great demo. First question is obviously, where can I find the demo? Where can I find the demo?
Oh, where can you find the demo?
Yeah.
We're planning a CTP of this demo next month. So we don't have a CTP available as a drop. And we're not posting the demo yet. The plan right now is to maybe host the demo so people can go online and look at it. But we have a couple of things to work out yet with image rights and so on.
Okay. The bigger question is, the Commerce Foundation architecture that you had posted looks very similar to Commerce Server in terms of the overall building blocks. So why a separate product? Like, why not just make Commerce Server play well with Silverlight?
Well, yeah, it's actually a complicated question. So overall, Commerce Server 2007 is really focused at the enterprise. It's still a more complex product to set up, and it requires some deeper knowledge to get it set up. And also, there's some older pieces of that architecture that we wanted to do something different with. It didn't play really well in the hosting space. It works fine for dedicated hosting. If you wanted to have dedicated servers, it works fine for that. But the space that we want to do much better in is more the shared hosting model. And so we have lots of sites and site density. So we needed to tweak some things in the core architecture that didn't really work so well in the Commerce Server architecture.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Kinda. Like, will it be easy to extend this into an existing Commerce Server 2007 implementation? Or will you guys have some sort of a pluggable model that, because I'm most interested in that shopper UI, right? Mm-hmm. That's really the killer piece here. And it'll be easy to kind of plug that into an existing Commerce Server site.
A lot of that you can do now today with Commerce Server 2007. We actually had a session on that earlier this morning at 8:30, talking just about using Silverlight Commerce Server.
Yeah, the APIs are very different. I guess you could probably take some of our, just the UI skins, and if you wanted to build something like that and put that right on top of the Commerce Server APIs, yeah, that's very doable.
But we're not planning out of the box to take our UI and make it run on top of Commerce Server. That's not one of the goals for this project.
Right.
Okay. Well, my feedback would be, please consider that, because I think that would be a really good sell point for Commerce Server 2007 itself, because the UI piece is something that a lot of customers struggle with. One last question is, will this Commerce Foundation, that's what I should call it, right? Commerce Foundation? Right. Will it work with any database, like ORM capabilities? So I can easily map your abstracted model with an existing database schema, because existing customers already have an existing product catalog and a customer profile and all that good stuff.
So it really depends on the database schema that you have. It's actually not one of our goals to support that. If your database really looks pretty close to what our underlying API assumes, then you can change the mapping file and do that, but it's not going to be a supported scenario. And the scenario that we do support is for you to use our base catalog schema and then extend it using new entities. But we're not necessarily going to support you changing our base schema.
Okay.
Would that be something that's really important to you?
Yeah, absolutely, because again, I'm being realistic here. A lot of customers already have an existing product catalog and profile database. It's very rare for them to build a commerce site from scratch. So again, it would be nice if you improve the mappability, whatever you have, right? Make it easier to, again, that shopper UI piece, like I said, is that killer piece. I really liked it. If you can make that attachable to an existing database schema, that would really, really be a good selling point.
I think it goes back to the target customers for this. And the target customers are really small, medium-sized businesses, not a big enterprise that already has a big investment in its database. What you're saying makes complete sense for a different set of customers, which is the enterprise customers that want to migrate to our UI.
Okay.
And we'll still have catalog import export that if you want to change the format and put it into a common scheme and import that, and that is one of our scenarios.
Cool. Thanks.
Any other questions? That's it?
Can you go to the microphone, please?
Actually, I'll stand out here.
I just want to say that there are a lot of small businesses that are constantly inquiring about starting an e-commerce site, and I think that something like this would be ideal. There's just tons of them clamoring for this sort of thing who can't really afford to hire a staff of developers to get this written. And I don't know what the underlying structure, I don't know how it's going to work until I get my hands on it and see how easy it is to implement. But I can see a big need for your low-end startup companies that are not even probably low to middle tier customers who would probably benefit greatly from something like this.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing. And so we want to make it really easy for, say, a hoster to pick up our starter application and deploy that as an offering directly to say a small business owner. We're going to provide some basic customization out of the box, but we're really looking to the community to take that to the next level. Build some really rich themes, build the extensibility things that we're just not going to have time to go do ourselves.
And our goal is for it to work exactly right out of the box. But then as business owner, if you want to invest a little bit more, you can hire a designer maybe and then get really unique theming for your site. Or maybe hire a developer and get some new features that we don't support. But it should just work out of the box.
Right. Yeah, that was my impression with the turnkey application that you emphasized. Looks like a nice product from
Thanks. Well, we're just lucky that we get to represent a whole team back in Redmond, so they'll be really happy to hear that.
Do you guys anticipate having a promotions module for this product? Not necessarily like the Commerce Server full-blown promotion system, but at least something that's extensible where developers could go in and do custom components to implement customer-based pricing or volume discounts or something like that.
Yep. Pricing is a really difficult area. So we want to be able to provide some basic pricing support, through the catalog, as well as some discounting and marketing, merchandising. But we realize that we're only going to be able to scratch the surface of what lots of people want to do. So we want to create a really extensible, as Rory showed you, a pipeline model. So we'll give you a basic way to do that. And then if you've got a much more complicated way, say you've got some dynamic business rules or something you need to implement, you can plug into the pipeline there and implement your own. Sure.
So you may have addressed this, but does it contain invoicing so you can invoice your customers? Does it contain a connection to PayPal? Does it do any of that?
So we'll have a payment provider, and then as part of the order system, and we're still looking at exactly which things we include out of the box. In fact, that's our primary work item next week, is to finish up on that list.
So it does not contain invoicing at this point.
Invoicing by
invoice your customer. Somebody purchases something. Now you have a record of it. Do you have a means of cranking out an invoice and?
Oh, absolutely. So you get a copy of the order basically, and then it's like an order confirmation. You get a purchase order, and say here's your receipt, or is it something you actually want to send as, that you fulfill through a PO? It's not something you go like enter a credit card number and pay for. Is it something you just issue a PO, then you get paid through another mechanism?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I was asking you.
Well, either way, some companies may not go through something like PayPal. They just want to generate an invoice and then mail it to the customer. So I didn't know how this is set up.
If that's an important scenario, please give us the right feedback. I mean, these are the types of things that we need to understand how critical these really are. Because at the end of the day, what we end up having to do is, we'll get a lot of feature requests, and we have to measure that against how much work can we actually get done in the time that we have.
Yeah, because
so that's a really critical one. Then we'll need to know
some
that.
companies will create like a purchase order system, and then that purchase order will be shot out to your company, and then there's so many different scenarios.
And that's really good feedback. The architecture can definitely support that by just having the right set of pipeline components. And it's good that we know that people are looking at that. So we're going to look into whether we should support it out of the box or whether you're going to need to write a little bit of code for this.
I have you write a little bit of code to keep us programmers working.
Is there any other questions? The room is thinning out. Show you the demo again?
Yeah. Here we go.
So any questions over the planned architecture?
So question was to show the architecture slide one more time with the pipeline list.
This will all run on Link, so we have to wait to upgrade Studio Orbis.
So we're using ADL.NET entities. That's going to ship a little bit after Orcus. But it is going to be ready by the time that we ship. So it's going to be just a few months after Orcus.
We're trying to shorten that as much as we can. So we're working pretty closely with all those teams, and they're looking at our primary scenarios as some of their work items also.
One of the scenarios I have with one of my customers is an issue with fulfillment and trying to get inventory deducted by using it through a commerce server system right now to do the inventory deductions, et cetera. So they're really trying to run the e-commerce plus the fulfillment out of the one package. Would it be possible to do long-running Windows workflows through this system for doing the fulfillment and the inventory updating? So like having another pipeline for doing a fulfillment that you receive a PO back from the vendor and then the inventory is decremented.
I'd say the architecture would support it. We're not planning on doing that out of the box.
Yeah, it's a little more complicated of a scenario.
Yeah, the long-running transactions are pretty tough. And in the past, we've relied on products like BizTalk to handle that for us.
But what we'd really love to see is for us to provide this foundation and then for the community to provide support for all these scenarios so that you can either get it for free or maybe pay a little bit of money and you can get exactly the solution that you need.
Okay, any other questions? Maybe we should have shown up in Elvis suits. Probably better not, though. Consider yourself lucky.
Okay, so thanks so much for coming.
Good, thank you.
And we'll be...